Well, hello and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the New Construction Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Anya Chrysanthon, and I'm very excited to introduce my guest for today, Leah Fellows. Leah is a founder and CEO of Blue Gypsy Inc. And I'm so happy you're here today with us. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be able to chat with you about all of this fun stuff we're doing right now.
Yes, fun. Fun is the one way to put it. So, Leah, if you don't mind giving us a little bit of a background on who you are, what your journey has been, and of course, tell us more about your company.
Great. Well, myself, I have actually been in the building industry for about 14 years. Prior to that, I actually was traveling around the world for 13 years as a backpacker, a dive instructor, and a sailboat captain. So oftentimes people ask me where the name of my company came from, and it came from all my travels. The blue is the water, the sky, the gypsy. But as far as being in the building industry, I started out by accident as a site agent or a site assistant. And then quickly within the year, this was back in 2006. So this was when we had to experience another trying time in the building industry. And so I was a site assistant and I went to interview for a big builder in Virginia Beach. And as I was interviewing, the phone was ringing off the hook. And the VP of sales and marketing said, "We just lost our online sales counselor." And I said, "What's an online sales counselor?" And that's how my career began. I started out working as an online sales counselor for 3 years for that builder. And then in 2010, I started Blue Gypsy Inc. in order to work remotely with new home builders as an online sales counselor. So I did that for 4 more years before I began training. So that's sort of the overview of the course of my career and how I became an online sales counselor trainer for builders across the country. And so now I help them set up that face of their website, help them figure out the entire process, the program, and help them hire and train the right person to deal with all of those incoming digital leads.
Love that. So obviously you've been on the front line, so you know what it's like. And also one thing with this industry, and as a whole, this world, we're evolving very quickly. So even over the last 5 years, there's been a dramatic shift in the way people do business and the importance of having a sales counselor. And then especially in the last 3 weeks, as we've been experiencing this.
Weeks?
I don't know. I lost count, it's.
Oh, it is.
It's only been weeks. What day of the week? I don't know. My husband has quote unquote corporate job. So he's been working from home. So I've been getting booted out of my office, but it's just by his schedule, I kind of know what's happening in the world because, left to my own devices, I am in PA. So my real estate career as we know it is on hold pretty much because we're not considered an essential business. So I literally haven't left the house in, 3 weeks now. So
wow.
Yeah, so it's been interesting. But obviously during this 3-week period, the way we've had to do business, whether you are on a lockdown like I am, or maybe you're in a situation where you are considered essential, but you still have to practice social distancing, and the way you sell as a salesperson has become very different. So I think it's great. I'm so happy that you're here because what I want to talk about today is kind of what can we learn from the sales counselors, because they've been doing this job remotely, they've been doing this virtually. And I think when this first started to happen, people almost panicked and thought oh, the role of the salesperson is going to be eliminated because the online sales counselor is going to take that. But I don't think that's the case here. I think the online salesperson is again going to be the kind of the front lead to figure out okay, this lead is coming in. But then once you pass them on to the salesperson will need to adapt to the way they're going to interact with this person. So I wanted to talk about some of the best practices for do's and don'ts. When you do get this lead from your online sales counselor, to kind of like the progression, what kind of technology can we use? Um, how can we make it easier for both ourselves as well as our clients? Because our clients have not been experiencing this. Some of them may be comfortable with technology, some of them may not be. So I think it's a very important topic that we talk about today. So where do we start? So I guess let's start. Let's
Yeah,
start with
it's a
the.
big full question there, and there, yeah. Where would you like to start? Or I have some ideas if you're not even sure. Like a lot of builders are kind of grabbing their heads, going, I don't even know where to start. So if you don't know where to start, I have some ideas.
All right, let's do that. Since you're the expert, I will take your lead on this.
Well, so definitely it's a difficult situation because some builders come from it from an angle where they do have online sales and some don't have online sales. You've got in-house salespeople, and you've got, some of the smaller builders that have all brokers, outside salespeople. So part of it is starting to sit down, take a deep breath, and figure out what your structure is going to be, what your foundation is going to be, and really kind of look into how you have it structured right now. So if you've already got an online sales program, your agent shouldn't be afraid that all of a sudden the OSC is going to take over their jobs, because really when you hire an online sales counselor, you're hiring a different personality than a salesperson. They're two strengths, they're both part of a team, but they're not there to do the same work. Okay. And so there are tips that your sales agents can definitely take away from what your online sales counselors do that are going to help them through this. And probably we're going to see the landscape change in general. Okay. It has been changing. Like I said, I started as an online sales counselor almost 14 years ago. It really has been around for 20 years, but it's funny how different it is from when I started. It was before we had Facebook, before we had Twitter, before there was any such thing as Pinterest or Instagram or any of these platforms. Our websites were not digital marketing machines that were generating leads. So that was a whole different world then. I mean, we used to have something called forced registration, where we would make them register to see floor plans, which I kept saying back then, we've got to remove this, we've got to remove this. And nobody understood why, because we were getting so many junk, registrations. But so first, understanding what your foundation is. If you're a builder that thinks, oh, well, I can't afford an online sales counselor, I can't add another person to my crew, how can we take certain things that an online sales counselor does, which is mostly with lead follow-up, and how they attend to that lead, and apply it to their current position. Okay. And also understanding that if you do have an online sales counselor, they're not going to turn into your sales agent. They're not going to start giving the tours of your communities, asking those vital closing questions, really getting to the point, because it's a different animal. Okay. So I don't know if that helps in the beginning of how to look at it. We can dive deeper into those, but maybe that gives you an idea of where you want to go from there.
Yeah, so let's say let's tackle both scenarios. Let's talk about a scenario where you are set up with an online sales counselor, and you are the salesperson who's traditionally sitting in this model home. Now, either you're sitting at home or still in a model home, but you're not seeing that face-to-face traffic. So let's talk about some of the best practices of what happens when you get that lead transferred to you from the online sales counselor, because I think there's a lot of bias, and a lot of people, I think, are going to be treating online lead maybe differently than the person who's walking through their model home. But now, given the blurred lines, so to speak, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of foot traffic, or you may be getting foot traffic, but it's going to be reduced foot traffic. So the importance of online lead, not that you should have dismissed it earlier, which I think is a big mistake. A lot of people are not treating them as a serious buyer to begin with, But now I think let's talk about how important it is to treat them as an A prospect, every single one of those online leads. And what are some of the best practices? Like when I first have this interaction, say whether they scheduled a virtual appointment with me, a phone call. Let's talk about some of the best practices of introduction. How do I develop this relationship? Because for a lot of salespeople, we're great at the face-to-face stuff, but we're
Mhm.
not great at virtual stuff.
Well, and that's all, those are great questions. And those really kind of harken back to how the foundation of your online sales program is set up. Um, it's comes from the very beginning when, like when I'm teaching builders, I'm teaching their on-site teams that an online lead always should be treated like a be-back. They are more valuable than a lead walking through your door in the first place because they've gone through who knows how many contacts where they've conversed with or emailed back and forth with your online sales counselor. And the online sales counselor should be able to provide a wealth of information about that lead to the site agent. So right then and there, it is an A prospect. It is a B back. When you're dealing with online salespeople to site agent, there's definitely almost a dance that happens between the two, because as an online sales counselor, you're constantly referring to that agent, even by name, if you know that that's the community that your prospect is interested in, because you want to start familiarizing your prospect with the fact that when they do go out and visit the community, when it was live, right, back when we could do that, and in some places you still can, right, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but when you could do that, you wanted to make sure there were no mistakes and they knew exactly what to expect from this appointment. And that part has not changed. Now we're creating the fact that we need to know, what tools are we using? Are we using Zoom to set up these virtual tours? Are we using FaceTime? Are we using Skype? Are we using GoToMeeting or any plethora of other tools that are popping up that are like that? So part of that is on a company level deciding the structure again, like I said, the process, how that's going to work. And then the online sales counselor setting up the expectation for what the prospect and the buyer is going to get, both in communication and also at the time of appointment from the agent. So some of your prospects may not be comfortable on video, right? So they may not be comfortable, hey, let me set up a virtual tour for you on video, and they're going, right? And they're pushing back. So now you have a whole new set of objections that you never had to deal with, because the idea of walking into the model wasn't a big deal, but the idea of being on camera now scares people, right? So
Right.
you need to create options, because options give you choices, choices and options give you freedom, right? So if they're not comfortable with a video email, are they going to be comfortable on the phone, or where they don't have to be seen, but they can see everything? So having your online sales counselor versed in offering these different options is going to be important. And then having the communication between online and on site to set that up be important too. And part of that can be as simple as video emails, which even though your prospect may not be comfortable on camera, everybody else has to ditch their discomfort with camera.
Amen.
Okay. So we all have been saying this for years and years and years, and now it's time to just get over the fact that you're carrying around 10, 15, 20 pounds you don't like. Okay. Get over the fact that your hair is frizzy and not curly, right? And just be on video and be genuine, because the more genuine you are, the more people are going to want to engage with you. And now more than ever, it's important to have a personality to all of your digital marketing, your digital media, and all of your what people are engaging in. So that's all really important. So just being able to create that bridge and letting the client know exactly what they're getting and what to expect is important, and having follow through from the agent side from what the OSC is saying is going to happen, so that it's a smooth transition.
Okay, so I love so many great points here. So you guys, first of all, number one, every single lead you get from your online sales counselor should be absolutely treated as a prospect. Okay. Because number one, what Leah said, that you don't know what their journey has been. They may have been interacting with this person for the last 6 months, 12 months, and they're actually ready to go. So make sure that every single person, you're treating them as if they were right in front of you. You don't want to dismiss them just because they're not in front of you. So treat them like an A plus. Second point, love that you're saying, okay, give them options. So let's talk a little bit about options. There's obviously a lot of different options available. We mentioned some of them, like Zoom, FaceTime, GoToMeeting. There's others. How do we, I guess, should we give customer an option of like, okay, we have 2 platforms that you can choose from, pick one? Or like what have you seen the most builders do, or say, okay, we prefer a Zoom meeting, but if you're not comfortable with that, or if you don't have the system, we can always do FaceTime, because again, FaceTime, not everyone has an iPhone, right?
Exactly. Right. So I think that you definitely have 2 universal choices for what somebody might be comfortable with. And also I think it's that kind of a time right now, with everything, with the coronavirus and with everything, to let people know, hey, look, we're learning as we go too. So if we have a couple of hiccups, we need to make sure we have all you, and this is one more reason why you always need to have all their contact information. We need to have your cell phone so we can text you if we have a hiccup with the technology or something like that, so that you can get back in. So you can give them options if you want 1 or 2. I wouldn't give them like a buffet of, that's like saying, how, I'm going to show you 20 model homes today,
Right.
and then you have to make a decision. So you either set it as, this is the one way forward we're doing, or we have these 2 different options, which works better for you.
Love
And
that.
and that option may be a Zoom meeting, or hey, we can do a Zoom meeting where we're face to face, or I can give you a virtual tour where I walk through and we talk, and you don't necessarily, if you're not comfortable on camera, you don't have to be on there.
Yeah, and I think it's important to make that clear to the prospect that you don't have to be on camera, that just because we're doing something virtually, you don't have to be on. So it's completely optional for you. But I think for you as a salesperson, it is very important that you are on camera. Would you agree?
I agree. And one of the things I would say is, just like you never want to jump in and tell them, here's my deals and discounts, you don't want to jump in and say, you don't need to be on camera. The only reason you would even offer that is if you feel pushback in the appointment setting. If you feel like someone's saying, oh, I don't really want to go to that appointment, that's when you need, just like you do in any sort of discovery, you need to dig deeper. What's making you uncomfortable about this?
Mm-hmm.
Because my goal is to make this as comfortable and easy a process as possible for you. You wouldn't be reaching out to me right now in the middle of a pandemic to find a house if you weren't seriously looking right now, right? So what can I do to make this the easiest experience for you, right?
Love that. Yeah.
And so if you, as whether you're the online sales counselor passing that person to the site agent, or you're the site agent, we should always check in. And I know it's a little cliche to say take the temperature, but take the temperature of the comfort level of our clients right now, and how they want to move through this process. you
Mm-hmm.
know and I think it'll be a really, this current situation is going to give us a really good read on how we are, what we want to do moving forward, because we may
Absolutely.
realize that there's a lot more that a client wants from us that we haven't even been offering, you know
I agree with you.
especially all the stuff that we could have on our websites, all the virtual tours, all the Matterport tours, the interactive floor plans, all the things that they could be playing with and getting engaged with your company while they're sitting at home, so that as soon as the lockdown is lifted, they're like, I want to go see that house. you know so
Yes, absolutely. So you guys, again, it just goes back to setting proper expectations with your clients. And again, when you're on a video call, it's just like you're in real life. You know, you don't be weird about it. So you want to take some time, you know, build some rapport before you jump into things. But just treat it as a, you know, you're face to face with your client. Basically, it's just you have technology between you. So um, all right, so then let's talk a little bit about what can we do to feel more comfortable being on camera, because I think again it is important for our clients to see our face whether or not they're on camera or not.
Mhm.
And I think it's definitely easier when you have the other person on camera with you, so it feels more personable. One tip I will give is that instead of looking at the other person on screen, you definitely want to look at the camera, because that's how you make an eye contact. So, you know, when you're looking at the other person on screen, um, they're going to feel like you're looking somewhere else instead of looking at them. So, you know, maybe switch back and forth, but that's a something to be aware of, is look at the camera instead of the other person. And then you know, what if they're not on camera or they are on camera, what can we do to try to be more comfortable?
So I would say, still kind of, you mean yourself being comfortable even though they're not on camera?
Right.
Right. Well, one of the great things about salespeople is usually you wouldn't be a salesperson normally if you weren't somewhat outgoing and
Mhm.
somewhat okay with creating that. So I think, we all have our own pattern. We all have our own way of doing things. And understanding that we can do that into a camera, and understanding that try to remove the camera, try to pretend like you're not talking to a camera, but you are talking to a person. Like, don't sit there and look at yourself. Like you said, don't look at yourself, because if you sit there and look at yourself, you're going to get more and more self-conscious.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you somehow set your window off to the side, like you said, right here, my little camera, and I'm looking at that camera and I'm pretending I'm talking right to a person. Well, I'm not pretending, because there really is a person. That's going to help you. And I think the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. And that's why video email is so important, because I think the more video email you do, the more you're used to not talking directly to a person. And that will make you better for your live videos. Personally, I
Absolutely.
believe that will help you. And I think this is a perfect time for video email, because people are feeling so disconnected from other people that if they're seeing you on video in an email, they're immediately making more of a personal recognition.
I couldn't agree more with you. So,
So
and
if we
then,
were to look at tools that OSCs use that your site agents could
mhm,
use, video email is one of those tools, one of those important tools that we always recommend to online sales counselors to
mhm.
be using in their follow-up process. And so having that video emailing capability for your site agents is going to be important as well.
Absolutely. And, you know, you don't need to have any kind of a crazy technology to use video email. So it's really simple. All you really need is your smartphone. And I think every single one of us has one of these right next to us. So, um, and then, you know, when you think about like, okay, so when can I use this email video? I mean, you can pretty much use it for any situation, right? Just like you would send a regular
Yeah.
email follow-up, like the first time you were introduced to somebody, why not do an email video instead? Say, hey, you wanted to put the face to the name, so they see you and they feel more of a connection. They feel like you're more of a human being than just, you know, another salesperson.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of that, like another tip that sales agents can take from online sales counselors, and it's a hard one to implement, it really is. But one of the key things that an online sales counselor's job is built upon is a consistent, persistent process, a consistent, persistent follow-up process. So, they have it programmed in on specific days and specific types of tasks in their CRM. So if you're not using your CRM, which unfortunately a lot of sales agents tend to misuse, abuse, ignore, or just plain old hate their CRM system. and it's time to make peace with your CRM, come to some sort of agreement with it and learn how to use it. And that is a great thing to your online sales counselors are experts in the CRM. They can tell you exactly how to set up follow-up processes that will work. And in that, online sales counselors that are adapting all the right tools are including video email in there, and they can tell you, that those are opened far more often than regular emails these days. So
Absolutely. And you guys, you don't even have to send it in an email, because again, emails also have what, like 20% open rate if you're lucky. So think about text messages. If you're texting somebody, I mean, all you need to do is upload your video to YouTube. You don't have to make it public. You can keep it unlisted. That way only person with the link can see that. And all you need is that link, and you can text that link to your client, say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, whatever, wanted to follow up with a quick message for you. And they click it, opens it up, boom.
yeah, and I mean, the thing with texting, and I definitely, like, a few years ago, I wouldn't have recommended texting for OSCs, but obviously everything's always changing, right? A few years ago, but you still have to be careful. You don't want it to be the very first contact you make, because you want permission. It's almost like email marketing is permission based. You want permission to send them a text, because our text messages, I don't know about you, but when I start getting a bunch of text messages from things that I don't know, I didn't give permission to, I never thought I subscribed to, it starts to get frustrating. So you want to make sure.
Absolutely.
And that all falls into that follow-up process. So like I always tell, here's a trick for site agents that I always tell online sales counselors is, when it's a day to make a phone call in your task list, you make that phone call, you always leave a voicemail message, okay? You always leave a voicemail message, and in that voicemail message, you tell them the next thing. You say, if this isn't a great way to get a hold of me, feel free to text me or email me back. I'm going to go ahead and send you an email if that makes it easier for you to respond. Well, you can also do that with text. You can say, I'm going to go ahead and send you a text if that makes it easier for you to respond, because now you have two ways you've contacted them and they're starting to put that together.
Mm-hmm.
And you're telling them you're going to continue following up, so they might as well respond to you, right? And so that's all part of that, especially with new leads, when you're getting lead generation, you're constantly trying to find out, how can I get them to respond to me?
Absolutely. And then it's also, I mean, it can be simple as just asking them, hey, how do you prefer that I communicate with you, right? What's your preferred method? Because some people are going to like that old fashioned phone call. Some people are going to prefer the email, and some people will want you to text them. And, with all the gender biases that we have, like you'd be surprised that some downsizers would prefer texting and some first time buyers would prefer a phone call. So just ask. That's always a easy way to figure that out. But yeah, I agree with you, Leah, that the first time you text somebody, maybe ask them for permission, because it is a little bit more personable. Although I think it's starting to become more and more acceptable, especially if you came into my model home or you had an interaction with me and you gave me your cell phone number. I feel like it does give me a permission in a way, but always good idea to check.
Right. And I think you're right. I think once you've created rapport with someone, and that's more of a tip for people who you're trying to get to communicate with you. So again, back to that scenario where a builder doesn't necessarily have an online sales counselor and the leads are going directly to the site agents. These are some good things to keep in mind, and so it's important, because again, some builders are small and they think they'll never have that dedicated person to be their online sales counselor. So how can you take some of those tips that an online sales counselor would know what to do, and make sure that you and your company are doing it that way? So
Absolutely. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the handoff process from the online sales counselor to the salesperson. And, I think one of the first things you can do as a salesperson is definitely send out this, hey, I look forward to our meeting video email to put the
Mhm.
face to the name. Same thing if you don't have the online sales counselor and they're calling you first. I think that's a great opportunity to send that video message saying,
Mhm.
hey, it's been great chatting with you. Here's a little bit more about me and the community, or like whatever information you wanted, it's attached in the email, but say it to them in a video instead of just typing it up.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I agree. And remember to keep your videos short. Like you don't want to ramble on for more than probably like a minute and a half, a minute 45 most. Try to keep it under a minute because we don't really realize how long a minute is, but people have the attention span of a goldfish.
Yeah.
You know, goldfish has about a 6-second attention span. I mean, if you kind of look at websites and how quickly they load, if a website doesn't load in 4 seconds or less, we think it's slow.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're thinking 4 seconds or less is slow, you know, we need to be careful about how long we talk at a person in a video. So,
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So let's talk a little bit about, so say we have an appointment confirmed. They said, okay, I'm good with Zoom. I'm going to do a virtual tour via Zoom. What are some of the best practices for on the call? Like, let's talk about, maybe how do we um, start the call? Do you let them tell you kind of like, okay, I want to see this or that? Because obviously the process of you doing it in person is going to be different than you doing it through a Zoom meeting. You're not standing in your um, model home looking at the renderings, etc. So I guess let's talk about some of the things that we can do and we can have available, especially on Zoom, because great thing about Zoom is that you can share a screen and show them things. So would you kind of follow the same traditional path, or would you more take their lead and see what they're interested in? How would you structure that?
so I mean, it all depends. First off, you know, if there's a lead handoff between online and on-site, there should be information already passed of what that person's looking for. Possibly your online sales counselor has narrowed it down to a community, a couple models, reasons why. You know, a good online sales counselor asks questions like, "Oh, you know, would you like a first floor master or, you know, tell me more about how you live in the house." And it's kind of the same thing. I mean, these are the same kind of discovery questions that a site agent would ask. And it's important to learn some of that up front because you don't want to, again, going back to that idea of walking them through 20 model homes, you don't want to walk them through a lot of different models without knowing. So asking those pertinent questions like, how do you live in this house? You know, what's inspiring you to move? What, because you want to always discover people's pain points, right? So you want to know why they're moving now, what the reasoning is, what's their driving factor. Is it timing? Is it neighborhood? Is it schools? You know, all of those things that you would normally find out. And then from there, maybe you or even the online sales counselor already knew a couple of floor plans that would work for them based on what they said. So having the floor plans available to you that you can quickly flip to by
Mm-hmm.
sharing your desktop, having any virtual tours, any photographs, if you guys have had Pinterest boards full of each of your models, or if you have, you know, certain galleries on your website full of those model photographs, whatever you have, make sure you have them set up to go before your meeting. It's a lot more prep than
Mm-hmm.
we're used to. We're used to somebody coming in and us reacting to how they are on a tour. Whereas we are more guiding this. And so it's a little bit of a different process now. So we want to know as much as we can before the appointment. So some of that is what the OSC is discovering. Some of that is reaching out before the appointment. The fun thing is I've always taught a class called Bridging the Gap Between Online and On-Site Sales, how to do the handoff.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And that handoff always has these steps where the OSC introduces the site agent. The site agent reaches out to the prospect and says, I'm looking forward to meeting you. They should do it by email. They should do it by phone call, so that there's a lot more likelihood of that lead showing up. And when that's done properly, that person is prepared for that meeting. But a lot of times those fall off. Nobody wants to make that many phone calls and emails. So now more than ever before, it's going to be important. And the OSC is going to say, hey, look, Jenny is going to reach out to you 24 hours before the appointment, just to make sure she knows what you're looking for, so she can have a few things set up. Okay, so make sure you give her an idea of what you want to see when you get together, right?
Right.
So that's going to be important. All of those things, that setup is it's going to take you probably a half hour to prep for an appointment.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before, you just waited for them to walk through the door, right?
Right. And, I think, again, it goes back to the importance of setting those expectations, where before, when somebody walks through the door, you have a lot more leeway because you have them in front of you. You can, the like and trust factor, you can build that much faster in person, and kind of wing it almost, like, and let's face it, how many salespeople wing it, right? Because most salespeople, like, even when the OSC sends them a recap of, like, hey, so and so is coming into your model home, you have an appointment, like, let's be honest, like, how many people actually read through that one to take the time to confirm, reach out to the person? So now it's going to be ever more so important to do that, so that you do remove that awkward, like, oh shoot, like, I'm not prepared.
Exactly. I 100% agree. And you don't want to psych yourself out. It's not like you have to step through, you can still have some of that sense of on the fly that we as
Mm-hmm.
salespeople are used to, and good salespeople are like that anyway. Something someone says to them is what sparks the question. It's what
Yep.
sparks the next step. And I mean, we're talking about if you're not in the model, right? Say you're doing these virtual tours from your home.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, in some places, and I don't know how is it in Philadelphia, you can't even go into the model, or in Pennsylvania.
No, like, literally, like if I have, say, a listing that's an empty house, and I
Mhm.
wanted to just go in just to take a video so I can send it to my client, I'm not even allowed to do that.
So you guys are really locked down. Like,
Yes.
different parts of the country are different, and we know
Right.
everybody across the country listens to your podcast.
Yep.
So we should definitely hit on the fact that in those cases, you really are going to be doing the entire tour from the elements that you're lucky enough to have on your website,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, or fortunately, as the case may be. And this is where the whole company may rethink what sort of a digital presence they have.
Yep.
Because if you don't have enough interactive floor plans, if you don't have enough Matterport tours, videos of your building process, all sorts of things, now all of a sudden it seems very slim for what you're going to do in an appointment. Now, if you're still a company that can have maybe one-on-one tours or virtual tours, maybe your agent can sit in the model, but you can't have people there. At least they can then walk someone through the model.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will tell you, from remote shopping for our house in Denver and having a real estate agent that videoed all these houses so that we could see like about 21 different houses
Oh
throughout the
my.
course of several months. Because when we bought here, it was a really hot market, and a house would go on the market and it'd be under contract in a day or two. So we had to make quick decisions. So he would go out and video them. You want to make sure that you have a steady hand, because you will make your customer nauseous walking around shaking that camera. So having like a selfie stick, having something where you can be more firm. I mean, yes, we're not going to have those great rolling tripods that movie producers have, right? But being aware of how quickly you're moving. You need to move slower than you think when you're panning a room. And
Yes.
and you want to start at a logical point so people can say, I'm coming from the front door. Now I'm going to take you to the right side of the house, the left. You want to give direction as you're walking and talking them through that.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those things are very important.
Okay, and so I have a quick question. So you mentioned, say if we're in a complete lockdown, right? And I can only work from my own house.
Right.
And so I am forced to only use the tools available to me on the builder's website. And
Mhm.
say we do have a virtual tour available on the builder's website. Would you recommend then, when we say for a virtual tour, do we still get on a Zoom call and I navigate the virtual tour, or do I just tell you, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, we have those virtual tours available. You navigate and then let me know if you have any questions.
No, I would navigate with them. I would back to the old school way of the way we used to, and I know that not every sales agent does this anymore, but we used to take people along on tours through the houses. And I think it's kind of the same thing
Mhm.
because also sometimes even with those Matterport tours, people can get hung up in a corner and things like that. So this way you can walk them through, and even if there's any little question they have about it, you'll be able to clarify for them, and you'll be able to ask them questions along the way. Here we are in the living room. Would you use this as a living room, or would this be more like your craft area? Would this be, this is how you discover how your people are going to live in the house. So yes, they've probably already looked at it once on there, but they may have questions. Hey, and you can address it that way. You can say, you've possibly already looked through this virtual tour on your own, but let's walk through it together so you
Mhm.
can ask me questions and I can provide you some information. Like you're not going to know what the energy efficiency of, our our insulation is, but let me tell you, this is a really warm room in the wintertime because of, you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah, so
so
remember, you're not just showing them. You don't want to be the shower. You want to be the storyteller, asking questions in the process. So just like a regular model demo, uh, you're doing the same thing just virtually. So yeah,
exactly.
I love that.
Exactly. Have stories. Have your regular stories you would tell in such and such a room, If you have a funny story that draws people in, gets them laughing, um, you'll be amazed at how easily you'll be able to break the ice through these because it's new to everyone, you
Yeah,
know?
and I think that's the thing. Like, customers also know that this is different for you. That even though you're the salesperson, this is probably not what you normally do, and
Right.
so they're going to be forgiving too.
Exactly. I think so. I think they will be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been such great information, Leah. I feel like it's really helpful for a lot of salespeople to hear this and to know that, um, you know, like it or not, this is probably going to be a new way of doing business going forward, even once coronavirus is done. I think a lot of consumers are still going to be expecting to do business this way.
Mhm.
So, it's gonna get on board or get off the ship,
And I think you'll see that there's even newfound appreciation for your online sales counselors, those of you who have them, because it really isn't an easy job to do
Mhm.
everything remotely and online. But there again, it does speak to a certain kind of personality, and those site agents, they desire to be in front of people, they desire to see people and have that human contact, and that's why I say, the person you hire for your online sales counselor. And if you're considering doing online sales now that you're seeing how important it is,
Yep.
there's definitely a process you want to go through to set it up for success. Because I've seen plenty of dysfunctional online sales counselor programs out there that need fixing. And having done it for so very long, there's just certain things that you need to keep in mind as you set it up for success. And just really quick, the metrics of it is before COVID-19, your online sales counselors, you know, about 30% or more of your sales could easily come from your online sales counselor. Before that, about 1 in 3 to 1 in 5 appointments that they would set would turn into a sale for that site agent. So it is really important to have that pre-qualification process and that lead nurturing that happens in the beginning, because you hear it all the time that it takes 6 to 8 or 8 to 12 touches
Mhm.
really get a lead even to an appointment, much less a sale. And unfortunately, most of the time when we're moving and grooving and we're busy and those leads are going directly to the site agents, they maybe try once or twice to get a hold of that person. And if they don't get a response, they abandon that lead. And
Yep.
we spend too much money generating leads to websites to have that process not work correctly.
I couldn't agree with you more, Leah. If my listeners know how passionate I am about follow up using CRM and really staying on top of your leads, that's like always something that I preach to them. So Leah, if somebody wanted to learn more about your company and potentially use your services, if whether they have online sales team now and they're looking to improve it, or if they're now realizing the importance of having an online sales team, how can somebody get a hold of you and learn more about you and what you do?
Well, thank you. That's a great question. They can easily go to my website, which is bluegypsyinc.com. So it's BLUEGYPSYINC. Ink like the incorporated, not like the tattoo. So ink.com. And I give free consultations all the time. So you can find free consultations on my website. And I love to dig into what you have, where you want to be, where you want to go, give you ideas. My clients often say I give a lot of stuff away for free. So and I love helping people. So it is all about the helping people be successful. And honestly, like if you're a builder that's wants to build 40, 50 homes a year or more, you should be thinking about online sales, because I've definitely helped builders set up the OSC position for that. And then if you only build 25 homes or less, we can talk our way through some ways that you can adapt certain things to people who are already in your company. Because I know that seems like, why would I want to hire a whole person for 25 homes? But if you want to grow, then you may need to take a look. So
Right, absolutely. And think about that salesperson on site, how they get overwhelmed and they always give priority to walk-in traffic, not necessarily following up with online leads. So I think it's very, very important, especially going forward. So Leah, thank you so much for being here today. I so appreciate you. I think this was a great episode, a lot of really helpful information to help us learn how to sell in a brave new world, I guess, as you can call it. So I mean, I know the world is definitely changing, so as far as conferences, whatnot, is there anything you're planning to make an appearance at where people can see you? I mean, now
yeah.
obviously given the situation may not happen, but
Well, we're hoping, we're crossing our fingers, right? So I am supposed to speak at SEBC in Florida at the end of July
mhm.
on online sales, of course. So I should be speaking at that. Obviously, I'm always at IBS. I try to speak there sometimes, whether it's in the Professional Women in Building headquarters or other places. Definitely going to be submitting some stuff, so we don't know yet what's going on with that. But I am putting together, and it's on my website. I haven't been promoting it yet because I don't know what's really going to happen. But I do have a 2-day in-person retreat that I'm doing for online sales counselors. It's going to be an intimate group. It's going to be limited to 30 online sales counselors in Denver, which is where I'm out of, in Denver, downtown Denver. And it really is for new and seasoned online sales counselors, because we're going to go over all sorts of techniques in 2 days, and also balancing your life, because it is hard as an online sales counselor. You do kind of work 24/7, just like real estate agents, but in almost a different way. And so how to get some of that work-life balance in there, along with actual techniques and tools and demonstrations and things like that. So I'm really excited, because that event, came back from IBS going, I'm going to do this. And then of course, Corona hit. And so we'll see how it goes, but I'm hoping to still be able to have that in October. And that's October 15th and 16th in Denver. So
Great. If you can send me some information on that, I'll be sure to link it in the show notes. And you guys, I'll link all of the information for Leah in the show notes so you can check that out and find out more. Leah, thank you so much for being here. Again, I appreciate your time and all of the insights you provided for us. And I can't wait to see you in person, hopefully
I know.
soon again.
I know. I know. I look forward to seeing you again soon for real in real life.
All right. Bye.
Bye.